Since the last attempted pirate raid, those of Earth and her colonies were not really concerned with what was on the horizon, but more concerned with repair and salvage of what was remaining. The ship that was taken down in space before it even got to Earth was salvageable and was being worked on right now, along with most of those that had landed but were unable to take off again. Only the one that had made the hard landing had to be completely stripped down for parts, as the entire superstructure had been bent to the point where it couldn't be fixed. No one complains about the work, though, because the pirate raid had actually brought more work and wealth to the planet than it had taken away. The only thing the pirates were able to get was old clan communications array. It is the sort of thing easily found on the market and even easier on the black market. Mechs and aerospace fighters are easily salvaged, and it isn't long before the only thing that remains of the raid is the holes where the ships burned in at. The drop that landed in the east had yielded some interesting products for the Japanese. It isn't long before they're bartering with the Confederation for more elemental suits and stronger weapons. Sin is almost happy to be bartering artillery pieces for salvageable mechs. Still, for the sake of protecting the planet, he allows deals to happen without being interrupted. The US and England also barter with recovered pieces, and this goes along well. Along with the main assault, didn't aim at either of them, they did manage to pick up a few pieces here and there, as ships and parts quite literally fell from the sky. The Earth economies are now booming with the influx of clan tourism, if you could say. The economy always has money moving around. One of the clan's favorite spots is to visit the Gettysburg battlefield for some reason. Still, many take the opportunity and rest on one of the beaches. There's other commerce as well. Some of the smaller independent nations around the universe begin to trade with Earth as well. It is rare, but some of the inner sphere jump ships still enter Earth's space, though many are put back by having to submit by so many identification markers like fingerprints and a DNA sample before they are allowed to roam free. Some refugees have come to live on Earth as well, even though it is only about 10 a year at most. It isn't until the last raid that several of the larger governments contacted Earth. The Federated Suns, Free Worlds League, the Draconis Combine, Lyran Alliance have all contacted Earth, but Sin is not willing to leave his people. So he sends out an invitation and waits to see who will come to him. It's not long before a representative from the Free Worlds League jumps into Earth's space and asks for an audience with Sin himself. He is welcomed down, but is more than a little agitated by the security precautions that the ambassador must go through. The ambassador is talking to a young woman performing the security checks. Why would you treat a diplomat in such a manner, becoming a lowly vendor? The young woman, excuse me, sir, but everyone must go through the same process when they enter and leave Earth. The only exceptions are when we are under attack. The ambassador, do you know who you are speaking to? Sin comes up behind and says, she knows exactly who she's speaking to, and if you want to be welcomed on this planet, you will finish in processing. The ambassador turns and looks at Sin. He's a little older, one or two gray hairs showing, but nothing crazy. His BEOs are worn, but very well kept. His face is stern as he walks up and goes straight to the ambassador. The ambassador, and who might you be to address me in such fashion? Suddenly, the woman notices Sin and is standing next to the counter. She comes to attention and stands perfectly still. Sin barely turns to her and says, as you were, then turns back to the ambassador. I'm the one you came to see, and sticks out his hand. Welcome to Earth. I'm Commanding General Sin of the Earth Confederation. The ambassador, slightly embarrassed, holds out his hand but does not connect with Sin's. I am Ambassador Ingerston of the Free Worlds League. Sin moves his hand and grabs Ingerston's and shakes it firmly. He says, this is how we greet friends here on Earth. When he doesn't see is one of Sin's subordinates taking down notes and recording the entire thing. I hope you will be patient a little while longer. The process is not a quick one, but we here on Earth are very cautious when it comes to our security. Ingerson replies, it is understandable that a young spacefaring planet like yours will go through such measures. A few seconds later, a card is produced and the doors open, allowing Ingerson to move out of the in-processing booth. Motioning his arm, Sin says, "If you would please come this way, we have much to talk about." Ingerson looking around and seeing several dozen clanners, obviously tall and well built. Being a little nervous, he says, "Indeed we do." Sin and Ingerson move to a military transport. The vehicle is not armored, but it serves its purpose. The engine roars to life, and they make their short trip to the installation about 50 kilometers outside the spaceport. During the drive, Sin tries to carry on small talk, but is constantly interrupted by one thing or another, whether it be a call or a message. It isn't until they're inside the building that Sin finds a moment. He says, "I'm sorry about that, but since the last raid, things have been a little busy." Ingerson replies, "It is quite all right. By the way, I'm amazed that you can speak our language so well." Sin replies, "Well, since the arrival of the clans, we've had plenty of practice. All of our military must be able to speak, read, and write your language almost perfectly." "Impressive," Ingerson says. "And any other languages before we go?" Sin says, "Well, this is the English language. It's very close to yours." Ingerson, "Perhaps I can get a lesson on it while I'm here." Sin opens the door and motions Ingerson aside. It is the same conference room he holds all his meetings in. Ingerson takes notice of the different chairs placed against the wall of the conference rooms with different markings on them, many of them clanner. There is already one set next to the table with the symbol of the Free Worlds League on it. "Please, have a seat. Can I offer you a refreshment?" Ingerson says, "Thank you." Sin pours them both a glass of water and brings a plate of cookies to the table. Ingerson immediately begins to chow one down. Sin says, "So, what brings a representative from the Free Worlds League all the way to our little corner of space?" Ingerson says, "Straight to business. I like that. Well, my superiors and I would like to make sure that there's no confrontations between the Earth Confederation and the League." Sin says, "If that's all, then this will be a short visit. You see, the Earth has no interest in reaching beyond its borders of this solar system." Sin punches some buttons on the holo map till the galaxy rises up. "You see, we do not stick with only what you call M-class planets like Earth. We have colonized every single planet, moon, and satellite in this galaxy. We have spread out farther in a decade than we have done in centuries. Right now, we have no interest in conquest, only survival." Ingerson says, "Are you not worried that your people will want to reach beyond the galaxy?" "It's a possibility," Sin says, "but you must understand that if someone from this galaxy wishes to leave, they can just leave. There is no penalty for getting on a jump ship and leaving. Many of our people have decided to join the clans and set out to the stars. On the same token, many clanners have come to live as members of the Earth Confederation." Ingerson says, "That is another matter I want to discuss. The fact that you allow free trade with the clans has turned your planet into a non-entry zone." Sin says, "I'm not sure I follow your logic." Ingerson says, "Most people fear the clans, and all those associated with them are considered to be under clan rule. This puts you on the list of restricted areas." Sin says, "You have it all wrong. Earth is looked at by the clans as a place of freedom and relaxation. It's the only planet where they do not have to worry about the clan rules. All they have to do is not cause any trouble for the people on this planet, and they can walk around free without having to worry about anything, fighting or otherwise. Many refer to Earth as their promised land, actually." Ingerson says, "It is still believed that your planet is staging ground for clan attacks." Sin says, "What the clans do outside our galaxy is no business of ours." "It may," Ingerson says, "if it brings the armies of the Free World League to your front door." "Do not threaten me, Ambassador," Sin says. Ingerson continues, "It was not meant to be a threat. However, there has been a marked increase in the amount of clan traffic moving through League space." Sin replies, "Like I said, the clans enjoy themselves here. It is to be expected that they would travel through." "True," Ingerson says. "Now, since we seem to understand each other on the next order of business," Ingerson pulls out an image. Your galaxy is positioned here, just outside of League territory. Your position as a strong independent has given this area a shield from any incursion. We would like to sign a peace treaty with you, ensuring that we will have no confrontations along this region of space. Sin replies, again, I can sign for those of this galaxy, but I cannot sign for the clans. I don't have that right. Anderson says, to make this treaty a reality, then the clans would have to be included. Well, Sin says, taking a deep breath, then we have nothing more to talk about. I cannot speak for the clans. However, I do not believe that they would put this planet at risk. We are too far from your territories or theirs to be anything other than a depot anyway. Besides, given the choice between you and the Capellans or the Combine, they would fight those guys over you any day. Well put, Ingerson says. Perhaps there is a chance for this treaty to be signed after all. Sin perks up a little. That is very good, since the rest of the council will not be here for an hour or two. Council? Ingerson asked. Yes. You see, you cannot make a government based around one man, or it'd be doomed to fail with that person. We've learned that the hard way many times. So I created the Confederation Council and the Earth Council along with our Milky Way or Soul Sector Council. Working things this way is the only way to ensure stability after I'm long gone. Ingerson says, we have a feudal system of government that has remained for hundreds of years. And exactly how many succession wars have you fought so far during that time, Sin asks? Since things are exactly what I'm trying to avoid. Ingerson says, you have a very interesting way of looking at things. A week later, Ingerson got back on his transport with a signed peace treaty in hand. Everyone on the planet knew about this since negotiations were televised. It seemed like the only way to keep suspicions down and to allow other people to breathe just a little easier. It wasn't until 6 months later that Sin received word that a representative from the Draconis Combine would be arriving for peace negotiations. This surprised Sin, since the Draconis Combine was on the other side of the universe, or the inner sphere as it is. It would take about 2 to 3 months of travel that distance at least, even in the latest jump ship. When the representative arrived, Sin was amazed that the slender female didn't make a fuss about the long in-processing. Her eyes seemed to watch everything around her. Her clothes were almost of the ceremonial type. The large red symbol of the dragon makes her stand out even more. She waited until she was given her identification card and exited the booth before approaching. Sin looks and says, Miss Kaatana, welcome to Earth. He says in actually flawless Japanese. Sin sticks out his hand. The woman seems a little put back by the gesture, then let her hand out as well. She totally missed his hand, so Sin adjusted and took her hand, shook it, and once they let go, he gave a bit of a more traditional bow. To what do I owe the honor of the visit? Kitana replies, I have sent to open a dialogue with your planet. If you will please show me to your leader, General Sin. Some of the subordinates began to chuckle, and then as they realized they need to check that motion and remain very professional at all times. Miss Katana, I'm standing right in front of you. He points to the circled collar with the star in the middle. I am General Sin of the Earth Confederation. If you will please follow me, I will escort you and the rest of to your council. Katana is a little embarrassed by her mistake, but Sin only has his name in English. She follows him, surrounded by guards. She looks at each of them and on the way they act. Each is very well disciplined and are constantly on watch for potential threats. She looks at Sin, the way he walks, and that's someone who has spent his entire life in the military. He is stiff and rigid, even though he is in his mid to late 30s, at least looks that way. Although he looks like he's been through several wars by the way his eyes are. Even so, Katana can't help but check him out as they walk. They make the long drive to the council room where the rest of the council is waiting. Those not present are hooked up on video conference. In truth, the only ones that are present are Sin and Delphine. Katana is shown to her seat at the table, and Sin takes his seat only 3 chairs away. The rounded table has filled most of the room and is surrounded by the seats leaning against the wall of other members. Sin says, "Welcome, everyone. I know it's not the best time for some, so I appreciate you making time. We have an ambassador from the Draconis Combine with us today." He turns to Katana. "Please introduce yourself to the council." She stands up and bows and says, "I am Mistress Katana, emissary of the Draconis Combine. I have come here seeking relations with the people of this sector." Corrigan chimes in and says, "Miss Katana, what is the true motivation behind the Combine's interest in this area?" Realizing that she's stuck, Katana says, "Very well. You see, even though this area is on the opposite side of the inner sphere, we have come to learn that this plays through our many dealings with other governments. Whenever conversations begin about certain places of interest, this one always comes up. It is known to us by several titles: the Clan's Refuge, the Aegean, but most likely it has come under another name, the Mercenaries' Graveyard." Corrigan kind of laughing. "I'm assuming that this is from the pirates' attack we had to fend off." Katana said, "Pirates?" Sin retorts, "Yes, our independence has left us open to raids from mercenaries seeking whatever fortune they can grab out of here. Our current system of trade has made us wealthy. They have come attempting to take that." Delphine chimes in, "However, the age of our spacefaring time has led people to believe that we are an easy target." Katana asks, "So, how many pirate raids have you fought off?" Corrigan says, "About 3 to 5 this year. 3 to 5 a year if we're lucky," as he searches through his papers. Katana asks, "That would make your planet's defense rather weak, wouldn't it?" Sin chimes in, "Our planetary defense is of no concern of yours. Now, on to the negotiations." With a firm tone, Katana realizes she just needs to sit down and says, "Yes, my government is very interested in making this planet part of the Combine." There's a clear stirring among everyone involved. You can see it through the screens and also in the room. "Did I say something humorous?" Sin says, "No, it's just that every government in the universe has given us the same pitch you're about to." "Pitch?" she asks. Corrigan comes in. "You're going to offer something in exchange for the planet, like nobility or some such nonsense. When that doesn't work, you'll try to intimidate it. When that doesn't work either." Katana says, "Then perhaps you can enlighten me as to what I should be doing." Sin hands over a stack of papers inside a binder. "Reading and signing this." He pulls out 2 copies of the standard treaty. Each one has been prepared for your arrival. They are standard treaties that each of the governments must sign if they wish to do business on this planet or any of her satellites, moons, or planets within the Sol sector. He hands her the forms, and they all wait patiently until she finishes reading. She places the forms down. "Are all these points non-negotiable?" she asks. Sin replies, "That would depend on what you're referring to," kind of hiding the fact that they are non-negotiable. Katana continues, "It says that only a certain number of jump ships can enter the solar system, and that only a certain amount of drop ships may enter the atmosphere. Along with that, there are only a few areas of the planet where they can drop to." Sin looks confused. "I don't see a problem." Katana asks, "Are all these stipulations truly necessary?" Delphine chimes in with, "These are steps that we take to keep the entire solar system secured. The only reason for any more ships to come our way is invasion." Katana thinks for a moment and then says, "Your point is well seen." She then picks up a pen and signs and hands a copy to Sin. "Perhaps we can discuss future trade over dinner?" Seeing that she looked Sin in the eyes and saying this with a slightly suggestive tone made Delphine's blood boil. Sin responded calmly, "If you wish, I will meet you for dinner. Right now I must discuss things with the rest of the council. My orderlies will show you to your room." Katana is led out, and Delphine is obviously pissed off as they begin to discuss the defense posture. As Katana is ushered to her room, she gets a call, and the orderly listens as they talk about the large clan presence. The Jade Falcon dropship Emerald Fury and the Wolf battleship Silver Fang are sharing the same space. It is enough to make the coldest pilots feel this chill go down their spine. Though they're not allowed to fight in space battles, they make great carriers and make better cargo ships. In space, it seems as though there's an odd ballet of personnel and equipment moving back and forth from the surface. On maximum magnification, they can see the other planets doing the same. Commerce flows well, but on a second look, they can see battle scarring from the planet. Many Earthships have patched holes and laser burns still on them. Fighters are normally a thing to be seen along with medical ships, and of course several small battleships. They all have Earth markings as they move silently past the Draconis ship. Every ship is clearly armed, but the weapon systems are powered down. A quick scan is able to pick up any hostile movement, but none are made. This news scares but also relaxes Katana at the same time. It is not long before she puts it out of her mind and gets ready for her meal. To her surprise, Sin arrives at her room to escort her himself. He is in his dress uniform that is surprisingly toned down. There are many shiny pieces, but none of the large hanging ribbons that Katana is used to seeing on a dress uniform. Sin takes her by the arm and he takes her to his car. He drives a modest vehicle with only a few bells and whistles, and when they arrive, Sin escorts her in. To Katana's surprise, she can smell homemade Japanese dishes. Sin tells her, at this restaurant you can have any type of cuisine you wish. Katana orders quickly, and the food arrives in a rather fast fashion. This surprises Katana, but not Sin. His uniform sticks out in the restaurant, as does Katana's clothes. To her amazement, the food is just as good as home. Sin tells her about the Japanese culture on the planet and how it has gone into seclusion from the rest of the planet. Katana is rather insistent on a meeting with the bosses. Sin unfortunately has to say, well, that'll take some time. Katana asks, how long? At least a week or two? If you would like, your crew can start to shuttle down to the surface, though. At least that way they will get some planet-side time without having to stare at every clan ship in orbit. That last line seemed to cut into Katana, but she made the call and items to trade were loaded onto another dropship, and they made their way to the surface. Katana and Sin talk through their entire meal, and Katana is almost too stuffed to eat dessert, though she does end up eating the cherry cheesecake that was sent to her table, at least a piece of it. Sin looks as she's eating at the waiter and says, we didn't order this. The waiter says, yes, sir, but the young men at the bar sent this for your friend. Sin turns around and sees a group of young soldiers smiling, giving him suggestive nods and hand signals. He waves back but doesn't smile. Katana, between bites, asks, what was that about? Sin replies, just some soldiers having fun. They finished their meal and got ready to leave, but the waiter said that the food was on the house, which agitated Sin. He said, I'm not better than anyone else here. The waiter said, yes, sir, but the boss said, unless you want me to bring him out and tell me himself, ring me up, Sin says aggressively. The waiter hesitantly took the payment and Sin left. As they walked past the young soldiers, they all jumped to their feet and snapped a salute. Sin responded by snapping one back as they walked by. Katana asks, what was that about? Sin says, respect, and that's for both instances. Katana was so full, so Sin drove her back. As they reached her room, Katana began to hold on to Sin's arm a little more tightly. As he said goodnight, she reached up and gave him a kiss. She said goodnight and closed the door slowly and suggestive, kind of hinting that he should be pushing his way in. Sin is a little confused at the surprisingly quick turn of events. When he gets back to his house, he can see a figure standing in the shadows as he walks in the door. A woman's voice, so, how's the princess? Sin says, sweet, as he clicks on the light, seeing Delphine. I'll bet, she said. Sin replies, You know jealousy does not become you. I'm not jealous, she says. Shh, don't raise your voice. You're going to wake the children. Looking around as he walks by, there's pictures on the wall of Sin and Delphine holding their children. One even of their wedding, although Sin looks a little worse for wear, surprisingly. None of which have large smiles on Sin's face, but he continues by saying, I would not forsake you for them or anything else she has to offer. Delphine smiles, and that is the end of the conversation as they head up to bed. The next morning, Sin receives a shock as he's informed that an ambassador from the inner sphere has just jumped into the solar system. Another one. Where's this one from? Well, it turns out they're from the Federated Suns. As it isn't long before he realizes there is no special treatment for any ambassador in the solar system, it is not until the afternoon that they get clearance to enter. Katana is surprised by the news as well and decides to meet the ambassador. However, she's not given a chance. Sin and his group are waiting for this Talia gets off her dropship and brought through the in-processing checkpoint. Talia is tall and with short blonde hair. Her slender body is accentuated by the tight clothes she's wearing. She is definitely not amused at all the security precautions she has to go through, although it's not long before she understands. She is ushered into the conference room where the meeting takes place. Sin says, Welcome. I'm sure you're tired from your trip, but I believe we would all like to get down to business. Talia says, Well put. I'm here to set up relations with your planet. It is hope trade can begin across the area of the inner sphere. Sin says, As I was hoping. He pulls out the 2 standard treaty forms and hands them to Talia. He says, These are standard forms that everyone trades with us through this entire solar system, and you must sign if you want to continue. Tara didn't give any type of response, as she simply opens and reads them carefully, and Sin sits patiently along with the rest of the council. And without any conversation, Tara simply closes them, sets them down. She says, There is one matter that has not been discussed in these papers. Sin says, Let me guess. It's the clan presence. Talia says, Correct. For the sake of security, we will have to stop giving free passage to clan equipment and personnel through your space. Such action should not be permitted. In the inner sphere, maybe, but not in Soul Sector, Sin replies. We have our own set of rules. Talia says, If you wish to be part of the Empire, cut off Sin's, why would we want to do that? Tia goes pale. Isn't that why you called for ambassadors to come to your planet? Sin replies, No. It is for what's written on those pages, as he points to the notes. Talia says, We of the Federated Suns have suffered greatly at the hands of the clanners. So have the Free Worlds League, the Lyran Alliance, and even the Draconis Combine, which signed a treaty with us yesterday. Tier's a little put back. What type of special deal did you make with them? Sin replies, It's the same one that's sitting in front of you. Talia pauses and looks at the files in front of you. You really expect me to believe that the Draconis Combine would sign this? Sin says, If you don't believe me, I believe Miss Katana is yourself. You can go talk to her. I'm pretty sure she's still on the planet. She's here? Talia requested. Perhaps I should speak with her first. Sin says, As you wish. One of my orderlies will escort you. With that, Talia left, and within a half an hour is standing face to face with Katana. This is the first time the two have ever stood face to face. They talk for hours about the situations across the universe, but mainly about the situation on Earth. It is well past dark before Talia returned to the conference room. With a little discussion, she walks in and signed both copies. Sin asks, If I may ask, what swayed your decision? Talia responded, I saw things here that I didn't think possible. There were mixed families of clan and human in every town. Different clans were drinking together and toasting each other and honoring those lost in battle from every side, actually. Even the former warriors of the Federated Suns enjoying a walk down the street, passing Draconis security and not caring one bit that they were there. This planet seems to become a haven from all the problems in the universe. Looks can be deceiving, Sin replied. We still have our problems, but the system of government is designed that refined before it was put into place. But there's no fighting anywhere, Tiala says. Sin's expression becomes even more sullen. If that's what you think, then you are very off. Let me show you something. He punches a few buttons and a picture is displayed. Several pictures, actually. There's a picture of 2 different pirate dropships from the attack previously. These are the remains of the battle we had recently with a group of pirates. As you can see, one of the dropships was shot down as it was lifting off. There were survivors, but the ship was just damaged beyond recognition. We're still cannibalizing this one to give this second one here functional. We should have operational in maybe 3 days to a week. Tara says, it appears that these 2 dropships cause you a lot of trouble, she says arrogantly. These are 2 of over 24 dropships that have made landing in the past year. This is from the largest pirate raid on our planet thus far. Tara looks over at the number and says, over 24? Yes, Sin says. You see, our peace and freedom comes with a price. In some cases, a large one. Sin stands up and lifts his shirt up and shows a large set of scars that cover the bottom side of his torso. If not for a clanner medic, I'd be dead right now. In the same battle, I lost my best friend Garan. He's buried with honor with the rest of our heroes. Tiala is almost frightened at the sight of the scar, as something that bad would have most likely been terminal. And all the mentions of death in such a place that is this. Tiala excuses herself and leaves a copy of the treaty along with one in her hand. Sin takes his and goes back to his place, one of the other files of the treaty away, and seems to be happy over the whole thing. A few days later, Katana and Tiala are in a cafe talking about how wonderful it must be to live on a planet when the alarms start going off. There is immediate movement of people around them, running and moving about. As they stood up, they asked what is going on as they see the Khan of Clan Wolf and a Khan of Clan Jade Falcon go running by. Tiala rubs her eyes in disbelief. What did they put in these drinks? One of Tiala's subordinates comes running up screaming, Ma'am, we have to go. We have to leave now. Katana takes off in her vehicle as well as they begin moving down the street. All the shops are being closed as big metal covers are being brought down. Other people are running out of buildings as though they've been trained for such a movement. A voice suddenly comes over a loud PA system. Alert, alert. Enemy fleet has just jumped into Sol space. Estimated time of landing, 17 hours. I say again, enemy fleet has entered Sol space. All personnel are to report to their stations immediately. The message repeats the entire drive as the women are brought to their drop ships, which are already in the beginning stages of their preparation to take off. They look around and realize that mechs and aerospace fighters are being armed. And they could only ask the one question, what the hell is going on?